History is written in blood, and when one generation forgets how it was written, the next may have to write it again. That sounds like the kind of sentence carved beneath a statue, something solemn, something people nod at, before checking their phones and walking away. Because for most of us, war is no longer a memory. It is a photograph, a chapter in a school book, a black and white documentary playing late at night. We know the dates, we know the names, we know who won. But knowing that a war happened is not the same as remembering what war is. And while ordinary people continue living as if peace is the natural condition of the world, governments are doing something very different. They are ordering ammunition, expanding factories, rebuilding stockpiles, securing fuel, training reserves, and preparing systems designed for a day everyone says they hope will never come. The war has not started, but the preparation has. There is an understandable temptation to make this sound secret, as if somewhere beneath every capital city, nervous leaders are leaning over maps beneath a single hanging light. But most preparation is not hidden at all. It appears in budgets, contracts, construction permits, factory announcements, military exercises, and long government documents that almost nobody reads. Global military spending has climbed for years. Governments are expanding production, rebuilding reserves, and trying to shorten the time needed to respond to a crisis. This does not prove that a world war is inevitable. It proves something quieter. Governments no longer believe peace can be taken for granted. The public sees a normal morning: traffic, coffee, messages from work, plans for the weekend. Governments see production capacity, vulnerable supply chains, mobilization time, fuel reserves, hospital beds, and how many weeks essential systems could survive if normal life suddenly stopped being normal. This is the strange divide of a peaceful age. Citizens inherit peace as ordinary life. States inherit war as a contingency plan. One side looks at tomorrow and assumes it will resemble today. The other asks what happens if it does not. Most people imagine war begins with an explosion. A border is crossed, a missile rises, a leader appears on television, and suddenly the world has changed. But by the time the first shot is fired, thousands of quieter decisions have already been made. Someone approved a larger budget. Someone signed a steel contract. Someone reopened an old production line. Someone studied whether bridges could carry heavy vehicles. Someone calculated how many doctors, mechanics, engineers, and railway cars might be needed. The first sound of war is not always an explosion. Sometimes, it is the sound of a factory restarting. And not every battlefield has a trench. Modern preparation also means satellites, ports, power grids, data centers, undersea cables, and the ability to keep a society functioning when ordinary systems begin to fail. A brilliant weapon matters little if it cannot be replaced. An advanced army becomes fragile if its fuel, communications, or spare parts disappear. War does not only consume weapons. It consumes time, infrastructure, attention, and the routines that make a modern country feel stable. By the time people notice history moving, the machinery may already be in motion. Our modern world is remarkably efficient. A missing computer chip can delay a car for months. A blocked canal can disturb trade on the other side of the planet. Companies reduce warehouses because storing spare parts costs money. Everything arrives exactly when it is needed, which works beautifully until something stops moving. War has never been impressed by quarterly efficiency targets. War demands spare engines, spare tires, spare radios, spare routes, spare people, and large piles of things that may never be used. During peace, those piles look wasteful. Citizens would rather have another school or hospital than a warehouse full of shells. That is reasonable. But when a crisis begins, a country cannot order an industrial base for next-day delivery. Factories need machines. Machines need materials. Materials need suppliers. Suppliers need workers. Workers need training. And all of it needs time. A stockpile is time. A reserve force is time. A protected fuel depot is time. A second supplier is time. A plan written before the panic begins is time. A nation can manufacture weapons. It cannot manufacture yesterday. Preparing for war creates a strange paradox. Weapons can prevent conflict, A country that can defend itself is a less attractive target. A credible threat can make aggression too expensive to attempt. That is deterrence. A promise that says, if you begin this, the price will be greater than anything you can gain. When everyone believes that promise, nobody has to prove it. But there is a problem. One country knows its own intentions. Its neighbor does not. One government says, we are building missiles so nobody will attack us. The country next door hears, they are building missiles that can reach us. So it builds more weapons of its own. The first country points to those weapons as proof that its fears were justified. Both may sincerely want peace. Both may honestly believe they are acting defensively. And both may make the other feel less safe. The same weapon can look protective from one side of the border and terrifying from the other. There is no label attached to a missile saying, do not worry, this one is only for peace. Intentions can change overnight. Capabilities remain. So every nation watches what the others build, and almost nobody wants to be the first to stop. Preparation also develops momentum. At first, a new factory may be described as temporary, a response to an emergency, a program that will end when the danger passes. But factories create jobs. Contracts create obligations. New agencies create careers. Suppliers expand. Communities begin to depend on the money flowing through the system. Soon, preparation is no longer a single decision. It becomes an ecosystem. Even if the original fear changes, the machinery built around it does not disappear overnight. This does not mean every defense program is unnecessary. It does not mean every company wants war. The truth is less dramatic and more difficult. Large systems prefer continuity. Institutions plan around their own survival. Budgets become expectations. Temporary measures become normal. And once a country has taught itself to prepare for war, stopping can feel more dangerous than continuing. The people who remember war most clearly are slowly disappearing. Not the historians, not the politicians, the people who remember the smell, the waiting, the hunger, the sound of an aircraft overhead, the knock at the door, the empty chair at dinner. They rarely describe war the way films do. There is less music, less certainty, less glory. Mostly there is confusion, exhaustion, and the terrible randomness of who returns home. But memory weakens as it passes from one person to another. A survivor tells a child. The child tells a grandchild. The grandchild reads a paragraph. Eventually, suffering becomes information. A ruined city becomes an old photograph. 1,000,000 deaths become a number too large to imagine. And the lessons change. We preserve stories of courage, stories of sacrifice, stories of victory. Those stories matter. But victories are easier to preserve than nightmares. A nation remembers the moment it refused to surrender. It speaks less often about the burned homes, the missing bodies, and the families that never became whole again. We inherit their victories, but not their fear. The danger is not that we forget war was terrible. Almost everyone knows that. The danger is that we forget how ordinary decisions made it possible. No single meeting looks like the beginning of a catastrophe. No individual contract feels like history. No mobilization is described as the first step toward war. Every decision arrives with a reasonable explanation. We need to be ready. We cannot appear weak. We must respond before it is too late. They are forcing our hand. Each sentence can sound sensible on its own. Only later do people look backward, connect the decisions, and draw a straight line between them. Every generation studies the mistakes of the one before it. Then it explains why its own situation is different. The technology is different. The alliances are different. The leaders are different. The weapons are different. And sometimes they are right. Until they are not. History rarely repeats itself scene for scene. It repairs itself through familiar emotions. Fear that shortens time. Pride that narrows choices. And the belief that acting now will prevent something worse later. Maybe governments are preparing because they remember history better than we do. Armies study old failures. Strategists examine how quickly supplies disappear, how long factories take to expand, how communications collapse, How alliances behave under pressure. States preserve lessons because forgetting them can be fatal. But states remember war differently from human beings. A government remembers production figures, mobilization schedules, supply routes, weapons that succeeded, strategies that failed. A person remembers the cold, the silence after an explosion, the face of someone who never came home. Both forms of memory matter, but they are not the same. A state can preserve every lesson about how to fight and still lose the memory of why fighting must remain the final choice. It can remember which army won and forget what victory looked like to the civilians beneath it. It can preserve the machinery of survival without preserving the emotional cost. That may be the most dangerous kind of memory, a complete record of strategy and an incomplete memory of pain. History is written in blood. But blood is not what gives history meaning. The meaning is supposed to be the warning. Every battlefield left something behind. A grave, a broken wall, a photograph, a sentence written for the next generation. The dead cannot force us to remember. They cannot step out of memorials and correct us. All they can do is leave evidence and trust that we will look at it long enough. Perhaps the factories now running late into the night will never supply a major war. Perhaps the ammunition will grow old inside sealed warehouses. Perhaps all this preparation will make leaders more cautious. That would be the best outcome, because the best weapon is not the one that wins a war. It is the one whose existence prevents the war from beginning. But preparation is not peace, and fear is not wisdom. The war has not started. The streets are still crowded. The lights are still on. People are still making plans for next year. And beneath that ordinary world, governments are preparing for the possibility that ordinary life may not continue. Maybe they are preparing because they remember. Maybe they are preparing because they are afraid. Or maybe those are the same thing. The uniforms change, the maps change, the machines change. But fear still shortens time. Pride still narrows choices. And the dead are still counted after the decisions have already been made. History does not punish us for forgetting names and dates. It punishes us for forgetting the cost.